So you might have already alluded to it, so maybe it's flexitarian, but you were early on in the eco aspect, eco packaging. You were early on in the ordering.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe flexitarian's the next thing, but where do you think 5 years down the road is that next thing that's gonna make a big impact in the industry?
Sure. So I think I'll answer in two ways. I think specific to my business, I think lifestyle marketing now when it comes to food and for food service operators has less to do with what it was maybe 4 or 5 years ago, where it's the cool aspirational Instagram photo of an attractive individual holding the product, or in our case, we wanted to promote that balanced lifestyle. So, the female that comes out, in her gym wear with a rolled up yoga mat, holding the yogurt. Not that those things aren't relevant today, but in terms of what really matters to the customer is what is he or she eating and not eating, right? And I attend a lot of the CPG food shows, in addition to shows like this as well as franchise shows. And I think it's important because to understand, again, consumer behavior and insights, the consumer packaged goods shows are at the leading edge of, grocery buyers attend those to see like, what am I going to buy and sell in my stores? In food service, you're typically looking at it from, well, whatever my culinary team or chef creates, or my distributor provides for me, that's what I'm going to sell, and then my limitations are there. But I think when we look at food and the evolution of these different diets or dietary trends, people are literally making their purchasing decisions on certain like key words or phrases that are literally starters or non-starters. And I think if you are staying within your enclosed box and be like, I'm not going to flex, that's very dangerous, because if the trend is, hey, we're eliminating that, then you're left with nothing. And it has nothing to do with your commitment to creating a great product. It's just that you're missing the mark because people change, right? I have individuals who, were like, oh, we used to go to your store like all the time. And then I became vegan. Well, now in 2019, it's like, hey, you can come back, and it's not just because I have one flavor, but we're actually developing 12 flavors this year, and they're all going to be vegan. And some of them are going to stay in our rotation. And so in doing that, again, that's what I think is more lifestyle marketing when it comes to food. Myself, for a while, most of last year, or end of last year, most of this year, I was on the keto diet, the ketogenic diet. So in terms of even my product, which contains sugar and a lot of dairy products too, it was something that I needed to avoid, as part of that diet. And so outside of flavor sampling, testing, and R&D, it's not something that I was able to enjoy regularly. Well, one of our initiatives for 2020 is going to be low glycemic, low sugar alternatives to bring down carbs and sugar, right? Because that impacts a lot of diets in terms of refined sugars like paleo and Whole30 and a lot of these other things. Which again, that's lifestyle marketing. My lifestyle eating decision fits in this category of keto. So meaning like even as an operator, so even here, I will still go to you, and if I like a certain burger chain, I'll figure out how to make it keto by removing the buns. Right. But again, I'm willing to do that extra work. But if you don't even know that about me, how are you supposed to personalize your messaging and your marketing to me? Right. And that's where I think the critical component is for the brand, not only to have the food offerings that can then integrate with that individual's lifestyle choice, but then messaging that to them so that he or she is aware and cares. You know what I mean? Because look, I mean, I think brands like that are using the Impossible Burger or Beyond, those are the brands that people are talking about, right? Because again, they're creating this new opportunity to have a flexitarian diet and having these alternatives, and people like that. People want new, and it's ever changing. And you might try a diet out for a month, and you might either revert or move on to a different one. Right. But if you think about it, during that time, certain things that you eat or don't eat are going to change. And so that's where I think brands need to have a greater pulse on what it is that my customer is doing, and over the course of their year or their lifetime, as that changes, and they're entitled to do so, because that thing's going to spike and it's going to impact your sales. Yeah. So I think that's another point. Again, I think having a robust CRM is critical. Really to fine tune, and that needs to be an ongoing process. It's not just bells and whistles and features, but it's literally, like I just mentioned, even from a dietary journey, right? Personalized messaging is nothing new, and I think in today's day and age, no matter what you are, millennial, baby boomer, no matter what, you expect retailers to have a level of sophistication to do that properly. Meaning, if Nike were to send me, advertisements for women's shorts or women's running shoes, I'd be like, what the heck is this? Like, somebody really missed the mark. I somehow got on the wrong. I would imagine that it was like a human error, right? Yeah. But imagine if they kept sending that to me every week. I'm going to unsubscribe, because now it becomes spammy, even though I like and respect the brand and will probably still continue to buy Nike products. you now lost a very important communication tool to me. Why? Because of a mess up of lack of really honing in on that personalization. So buyer behavior, and I think when you look at, a lot of the AI and the technology of predictive analysis and really, taking that data and being able to act upon it, that to me is the future of how restaurants and food service are going to be impacted when it comes to food, because those algorithms and that kind of programming is just going to fine tune even more that, hey, Solomon actually right now in these last 3 months must be either traveling and off the grid, right? Because he's not purchasing from us, or it's, hey, his actual purchasing behavior has shifted in terms of the menu level items he's doing. Hey, he must have a dietary change or something, right? And the more and more that these, that the AI starts understanding this, right, and the machine learning occurs, I think the easier it's going to be for me to then have a frictionless relationship, or removing a lot of the friction within the relationship. So it's not just, hey, here's a coupon for this off, now come in and buy something, and then we're like, okay, well, what did he buy? It's less reactive and more proactive.
Right.
So they know that the cadence, whether that is one that they can predict or one that they want to impact or influence, becomes more of a natural thing that you would expect from, let's say, a friend or a family member who knows you well, right? It's not just you meet someone as a stranger, you're trying to get to know them from the basics. Hey, so where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school? What do you do? Like, you kind of need to get all those things. Someone who knows you well, you wouldn't waste a conversation on that. It would be like, hey, so I remember 2 months ago you were struggling with this. How did that, like, are you good now? Do you need my help with it? Like, they're going deep into things that matter. And that's why they're close. And that's why you give them more of your, what I would call share of time. Well, with restaurants, it's share of wallet, as well as share of time, because there's only so many ways and so many channels that you can impact that customer. Right. Everybody on social media and digital and email and print and everything else is trying to get that same attention. We're all vying for it. So the more relevant it is at every single stage, the higher likelihood of not only conversion, but engagement, like staying within it. So that way I'm part of your routine, just like I'm going to see my friends and family regularly, right? I anticipate that every Thanksgiving and holiday that I'm going to see and spend time with family. Well, in the same way, how does that restaurant and that brand be a part of that life, be a part of you? So that way that happens. And I think for something like a 16 handles of frozen dessert, the easy, the no-brainer there is I better own your summers. Meaning you and I better spend a lot of time during the warm months, because you're already looking for something that I'm offering, or you're going to look for a substitute. So if I'm not even top of mind for you throughout the other months, meaning, okay, if it's 20 degrees in New York and it's snowing, I don't expect to be top of mind. It's like, I'm going to go out and get 60 handles. However, the type of marketing that I'm doing still needs to keep me relevant, and I can do that through, maybe not just product, but again, features. That's the time where I think a lot of the development needs to happen on the back end, and those changes on the front end need to occur. So if we're moving from a loyalty provider, right, or a gift card program, I'm not making those changes and turning those on in the summer, because that creates friction with people who are now either coming out of the woodworks and coming back into my store. When my operators are the busiest, they have part-time summer employees who may not understand what the difference was. I do that in the off season, right, or when it's slower. And so I think from a timing perspective, that's where even a business like mine that's very seasonal can use that to, my advantage. Is some businesses don't get that downtime. So no matter what, they're gonna, they need to really, take 3 steps back and look at, hey, how is this gonna really impact the guests, my customers, as well as my operators, and my employees, right? Because at the end of the day, if the employees don't get behind implementing them, what I say is there's so many great tools, and even at this show at FS Tech, a lot of cool tools. But if the user is not using it, it's like owning a McLaren or a Lamborghini and you don't know how to drive it. So it can look pretty and you can say, I have one in my garage, but it's like, but you really pay that much because you want to take that on the road and it can do something that other cars can't, right? And so, but you need to have the driver or the drivers, as well as the people that can maintain and manage it, right? That's because awesome. if you don't get that thing an oil change, right? Like then again, it's going to break. And now you have this really expensive piece of equipment that you bought, that you tried to use, that doesn't work. And now it's sitting in your garage anyway. And that's another piece where I think that the operators are going to, it's imperative now. It's not a luxury. It's a you must. Because I think 10 years from now at a show like this, you're going to see actually a lot more mom and pops than you're going to see the enterprise clients and the chains and the multi-units and the early adopters. I wouldn't even say that the attendees here now are early adopters. I think that it's a maturing industry. And you're seeing this with the likes of even third-party delivery partnering up with the major brands. You can get a Big Mac, you can get a Starbucks coffee, you can get what you want now, a Chipotle burrito, from one of these major delivery service providers. Whereas, 5 years ago, they were like, no way, we're not doing that. And now they realize if the guest wants it and it's a part of his or her lifestyle, you'd be foolish not to participate, right? And that goes all the way down to, hey, I'm a mom and pop sandwich shop and I don't need any of that fancy stuff. It's not about it being fancy, it's a necessity, because if you truly care about your customers and you're guest centric, they expect you to be able to operate and deliver a certain experience that you can't do with the tools that you maybe used up until this point.
Right.
So that's why I think it's a necessity. But at the same time, don't get overly zealous and think, well, if I'm buying the top of the line, this, that, and the other, and I have all the shiny parts, that it works.
Yeah.
You still need drivers, you still need managers. Like, it doesn't just drive on its own.
Yeah,
right?
that's awesome. And I have 2 final questions for you. They're tough ones, though, just gonna warn you. So, favorite sushi roll and favorite frozen dessert from your 2 restaurant experiences.
Okay. So my favorite sushi roll, and I'll answer it this way. My favorite sushi hand roll is a blue crab hand roll. That's become my favorite. And I would say that from frozen dessert or soft serve, it's actually our So Fresh mango sorbetto that we sell in 16 handles. This comes from Alfonso mangoes, which are like the sweetest, most delicious mangoes in India. And so our mango puree is from those mangoes in India.
Oh, wow.
It's like 4 ingredients. So I've been to India. I was there on a missions trip. And when I tasted the mangoes, I was like, this is not a mango. It's some sort of a candy thing that looks like a mango.
Yeah.
And when you taste our mango and you've never had an Alfonso mango, that's what you're going to think, is this is probably an artificial candy mango. It's the actual mango.
Oh, wow.
And so to me, that like blows my mind, because I've had the real thing.
Yeah.
Our Indian customers know what that is, and they're like, oh my gosh, that's really amazing. But that to me is my favorite.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Solomon, pleasure, man.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.